So let's start off by understanding that the views and opinions expressed in this workshop is that of myself and Hi on behalf of OVPTL Communications, not necessarily UCI Strategic Communications. That's the same disclaimer that you hear when you listen to KUCI for either my radio show or Hi's radio show. And it's important that you understand that what we are talking about here today is not directly from Strategic Communications. If you do have any questions or comments or concerns or issues that you have about social media in general or Stratcom, Laura Rico is your contact. Now, how many people are not part of the secret Facebook group that she's put together? If you haven't, you can email her and say, Ryan said that there is this secret Facebook group. Can I join and be part of the inside crowd? It's a very informal group for people to essentially connect with each other, especially if you're in communications across the campus. All right? If you have any issues logging in, you can figure that out and we'll take questions along the way. Okay, so who are we? We are UCI OVPTL Communications, and we work specifically within helping summer session, Division of Teaching Excellence and Innovation, and then also the Division of Undergraduate Education. So we have a large part of the campus that we cover, and we support those that are under the OVPTL. Although UCI Media, we can help create all kinds of fun videos for you if you need a resource on campus. There's no official registration, but the nice thing to do is to make sure you're following us on social, as well as our sponsor. That's a good way to sort of see what we're doing in action, because we do preach a lot, but we practice what we preach. These workshops are recorded, so if you enjoy this workshop, there are 10, 15 of them online in fully produced formats. They're good resources for you or also new students that you bring on board. You can search for the topic, and each one has a teaser to make sure that it's something that you want to get into. I'm going to talk just for a second about our sponsor opportunity. This is made possible by sponsors. They help pay for the food, we help arrange the space. It's a nice partnership. So if you're interested in having one of these that focus around one of the challenges that you're facing, it also gives you an opportunity to speak to a nice cross-section of marketers from across campus. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Alyssa, who's going to explain what she's doing on campus and how you can help her. Yay!
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Upper right.
Yep.
Thank you for coming, and thanks a lot to Ryan, Hi, OVPTL, UCI Media. These have been amazing workshops for, I think it's almost 2 years now, I was seeing. And the strategies he shares, the tools, and the community that we get to experience is really invaluable. Some of what you see here has been developed. I am the outreach coordinator for the UCI Master of Urban and Regional Planning program. We have had issues with branding, and that's what we're going to be talking about, the big name deal today. Planning itself has a branding problem. Nobody knows what planning is. It's not event planning, it's city planning and good planning. So one thing we try to do when we're thinking about our brand is we have to let people know what planning is to begin with. These are some of the things planners do. They research, design, and develop programs. They lead public processes like public forums and finding out what a community wants. They affect social change. They do technical analyses, air and water and traffic analyses. They manage cities, they manage regions, and then they educate people on what their communities offer. Tons of areas of specialization. I knew nothing about urban planning, that all of these things could be provided by getting a planning, that you could participate in any of these by getting a planning degree. This is one thing, when we first started to think about the branding, this is kind of the old, more academic description of what MERP's about. It's what the faculty have put together for past accreditation reports, and it's what's in the general catalog. But as you see, it doesn't really grab your attention. It doesn't, what Ryan's going to get into, it doesn't get into what's the problem we help you solve. So we have been trying to work on what are some grabbing things that we can do. We're talking about you're getting a professional education and you're getting professional results. You're going to get a job after you spend 2 years in our program. We try to point out that we're an accredited program and we're the only one in Orange County. We're trying to point out that our employment rate is very strong, and Orange County is actually one of the top paying metro areas for urban and regional planners. So one of this little logo up here is something I've been trying to pull out as a tagline: developing equitable, sustainable, and empowered communities. Because I think that's a problem I think we solve for people, is giving them a career path where they can do these things. And that's very broad, but then once you get in, you can figure out what you want to do and do it. So Ryan said we get to give it a little ask. My ask would be to check us out, check out our website, learn a little more about what the program offers, and just know that planning exists. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram to kind of see what planning is about, because that's where I post planning related information that happens in our program. So this was my little, you're going to get to it later, but this is my little Kachina Matryoshka doll, I guess is what they called. And I thought about this before the Netflix video came out this week. So one of the things Ryan's going to talk about is leveraging and utilizing the UCI brand standards to help throughout all the courses of the units. And so, our program is all the way down here. We're in this little doll and this little doll and this little doll, but we still can utilize some of the forms of the UCI brand. And so thank you. I'm going to give you to the headliner reason we're all here, but thank you all very much.
All right, round of applause. All right. Now, can you sum all that up in 3 words?
No.
Okay, but you will by the end of the day, all right? We've got a lot of deliverables here for you. Now, selfish plug for OVPTL, make sure that you are following Michael Denon. We put him as a poster child of somebody who is an academic leader that's really adopting these new forms of communication. So if you want to get inspired to get your deans and your vice provosts to do the same, see what we're doing with Michael Denon, and make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel. Okay, am I going backwards? Or did we put these in? Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm going to introduce Mr. High, who's at the back of the room, and if you notice what he's doing, he's taking a picture. Because as you go through what you're doing, make sure to document so that you can continue to share what it is. Sometimes we forget to do that. So Mr. High, come on up here. As everybody claps for you, High's going to talk about, in real life, what's happening on campus.
All right, good morning, everybody. So before we get into the meat of what we're talking about, we made sure to ask all of you what you are starting off with in terms of the baseline when it comes to brand. So based on all of the questions that we asked, which include, does your unit or department have a clear brand statement? We added the numbers, and approximately 70% of you said that you have some kind of brand statement, but it could use an upgrade, could use a tweak, could use some refinement, or you just need some help putting it together.
So you mean that over 70% of the people who polled from this audience is not able to say, this is our brand, there it is, we can recite it, we know exactly what it is because it's perfect. Is that right?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure about you, but when I wake up in the morning and I make my cold brew tea, or I just started drinking turmeric chai with a little bit of ginger, change your life. But I'm not reciting in the mirror. I don't have it written in a sticky note exactly all of the tenets of the brand, and it's a muscle that you exercise. So our goal today is to equip you with more tools so you can go back to your individual units and exercise that brand marketing message muscle. If you're not 100%, that's why we're all here. We're constant learners, and that's why we're all at UCI, right?
Right.
Very good. So we're going to talk about love at first sight. Valentine's Day is coming up, and with a brand, it's something that you do want to have a personal connection with, something that you feel proud to advocate and message. To Alyssa's point, there is always going to be the very high-level definition of what you stand for and what you do, but we are humans at the end of the day, and when you're thinking about what you're going to post on social media, the language that you're going to put on your marketing collateral, or when you go out to people in the community, groups on campus, or talk to students when they're coming up to you to your booth, you can't recite that 2 to 3 paragraph statement. You need something that's localized, relatable, and easily understood. Would everybody agree with that? So we're going to go over how to use your messaging to jumpstart the relationship, and then also branding architecture basics. So as we saw with the doll analogy earlier, everybody knows that we have a UCI strategic plan, right? Yes, and we have how many pillars? Pop quiz.
6.
Who says 4? Who says 6? Who says 3? Who says 1? If it's 1, that's a very shaky building. I don't want to be nearby that thing. It is 4, but it depends on each of the units. Some of them have made more pillars, but they're usually derived from one of the core pillars. So everyone's right. What we're going to go through is an exercise to show you how to leverage an existing mission statement or brand statement and then localize that to ultimately what the vision is for your individual unit. The good thing is, for some of you, since we said some of you already have an existing brand statement, is you're probably not starting from scratch. And if you are, you still don't have to start from thin air because you always can recite and hearken back to at least the UCI strategic plan as your baseline. So the goal, when we break this down, is to hit the target. But first, you need to determine what you actually need. So show of hands in the room, who here has that brand statement already for your department or unit? Okay.
And none of this half hands because we can't see past the computer screen. Okay, good, thank you.
Yes, full extensions, please. And then who here has a rough idea of what your goals are as a unit, as a group, as a department? That's been communicated to you by your leadership or it's somewhere posted in your office. Okay, good. And how many people in the room could say that you know what your values are? Like, not only am I going to achieve this goal, but this is how we do it. This is our character. This is our personality. This is how we help the student.
1, 2, 3, vote. Okay.
Okay. And then how many of you have like a very clear mission statement? Maybe 1 or 2 sentences that really break down the essence, easily understood, very crisp, very clear. 1, 2, 3, show of hands. Okay. And then finally, who has that vision statement? So what's UCI's vision statement? That's okay, we'll go into it. But just so you keep in your mind, a vision statement is something that is short, sweet, doesn't even need to be a sentence, but just kind of captures the essence of what you do, 4 or 5 words or less. So this is a very sophisticated theory, as you see. It's kind of like the dolls, but
And for the record, when we were doing our research, we realized that they were Russian dolls, and so we tried to stay away from that as a brand halo. So now, don't think Russian dolls, think of Tupperware branding.
Yes, because everyone loves Tupperware, whether you use plastic or glass. It saves your life, allows you to take takeovers from lovely dinners, and bring your meals to work. So imagine this as the larger bucket of the UCI strategic plan brand, and then working all the way down to that vision statement with the Tupperware. So wherever you're starting, we're going to provide you the tools to kind of get to where you need to go. Ryan?
And this is what it's going to look like. Now, we came up with a new methodology to patch together best practices. You can go online, you can search how to create a value statement, how to create a mission statement, how to create goals. But what we did is we combined our expertise to bring it all together into a systematic format that you can follow and leverage. So this is what we're going to essentially be working you through. You have the UCI strategic plan to leverage, but you've got to figure out the problem that your department or unit solves. You've got to figure out your individual solution and the market that you cater to. We'll show you how that will lead to goals. Goals will lead to objectives. Objectives will lead to values. Values will lead to tactics. Tactics will lead to mission. And then overall, the vision is going to be pulled together. I wanted to say that real fast. Now, just from a high level, so you can see, there are branding pillars even. Now, there's many ways to slice this pie if you look at it, but these are sort of core pillars for the brand of UCI. Diversity, optimism, pioneering spirit, audacity. You can read the others. You can adopt these. You can leverage them. But it's just good to know that there's already a bunch of information that you can leverage. These are the strategic pillars. I encourage you, whatever you're doing, see how you can find the thread to bring it back to that pillar, because your leadership, their leadership, all the way up to Chancellor Gilman, they really want to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction. Now, here's an example, a couple examples of a mission statement. We're not going to read it. Here's another visualization of it. As you can see, some are long, some are short, some are image-based, some are bullet points. It's not a matter of how it's presented or what it ends up. It's something that you feel comfortable with, representing what your goals, your values, your mission, and your vision is. So we're going to go through this thing that I created called the 313. Now, I've gotten permission from the person who invented it. So I am all rights reserved, but I'm giving all of the rights to you at this moment. Now, it's going to make you think like a business. And I argue that you are a business, and your customers are students or whoever it is that you serve. So this is something that I speak on around the world, and I'm going to bring it here today in an abridged version. We could spend an entire hour and a half on this. Now, on your worksheet, if you do have it up, I'm going to encourage you to play along. If you are interested to see how this works out in real life, every Wednesday morning from 8 to 9, I have a radio show at KUCI called The 313 Show, and I work people through this process every week. You can see old shows at ryanfolan.com/talk. It really is helpful to see other people spinning their wheels to go through this. It is a discovery process. It is going to put you into various boxes. You will feel uncomfortable, but that is where the learning and the insights happen. The root of your goals, the root of everything is from the problem that you're solving, your solution, and your market, or the dean or vice provost, okay? So when all else fails, whatever the dean says goes, and whatever the vice provost says goes, and let's always listen to the chancellor. So I'm not in any way saying circumvent your dean, but using this methodology, you can maybe approach them with something that you've already kind of teased out. You guys ready for the 313? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, good. I'm very excited. The idea is to keep it simple and make it powerful. And the problem is that you probably talk too much. And the more you talk, the less people listen. And the less you talk, the more people ask questions. And when people ask questions, it creates connections and it creates curiosity. And then that's how you actually can convert people to want to show up at your door, to want to utilize your resources, to want to spread the good word about what you're doing. So with that being said, we're going to follow this method in the format that it is the title of. It's the 313. It represents basically your division or your department, whatever you're here representing, in 3 sentences, in 1 sentence, and then 3 words. Now, it all starts with the problem. I have to tell you something that might offend you. I don't care what you do. Nobody cares what you do. Students don't care what you do. Alumni don't care what you do. Nobody cares what you do. Now, I know that's harsh. But the reality is that people care more about the problem that you're solving. They care more about the deliverables that they'll get after working through whatever it is that you offer to solve the problem that they have. There's a classic statement of Whiffam, what's in it for me? And to be honest, we are all a bit selfish because we have limited time and we're investing our interest into things that can help us out. And there's nothing wrong with that. So, if we can agree that it makes sense people don't really care what you do, but that instead they care more about the problem that you solve, if we're going to accept this as a tenet right now, it's crucial that you can explain the problem that you solve without telling people what you do. Again, describing the problem that you solve without telling me what you do. Now this is difficult because ingrained in your system, when I'm going to ask somebody what the problem is that they solve, they're going to mess up and they're going to tell me what they do. But if you can refine your messaging to 1 sentence, the problem that you solve, I'll show you how that opens up the ability to spark interest before you tell them what you do. Who wants to take a chance and tell me the problem that their department or unit solves? Okay, yes.
Student confusion.
Say it again?
Student confusion.
Student confusion, okay. Taken as the words that he said, student confusion. Is that a problem? Yes. Okay. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, let me see your hands voting that 10, this is a really, really, really big problem, and 1 if it's not that big of a problem, based on the words that he chose to use. Say it again.
Student confusion.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, let me see your hands and vote. The words that he chose to use. Put your hands up, let's see. 2, 5, okay, 8, 5. Okay, put your hands down. Now look at your fingers and ask yourself when the last time was you got a paper cut. How many people got a paper cut? Okay, if you don't raise your hand, you're lying. Here's the thing. What happens when you get a paper cut? Who's got a piece of paper? Actually, I'll use a business card. This will work better. What happens when you accidentally go, stings, and what do? Probably pretend that it doesn't happen. Right? You don't go screaming down the hallway, don't call for a medic, nothing like that. Well, imagine for a second that this business card was a little bit more aggressive and you actually cut your finger off. And now I have no finger and it's crawling around the floor and there's blood squirting everywhere and everybody's screaming. What do we do at that moment? We stop the tape, stop. Somebody calls 911. Somebody catches me as I fall. Somebody gets the finger that's crawling around. Somebody goes and gets ice and puts it on the ice. Everybody else is maybe trying to calm down other people that the sight of blood is fearful. So what's the difference between a paper cut and a finger being chopped off? The level intensity, but what I'm looking for here is the implicit reaction after you hear it. The implicit reaction. What do I need to do? And the problem that I see with people when they describe their problems, the problems that they solve, is that they describe the problems that they solve as a paper cut. So the person that's listening to you goes, yeah, students are confused, I get it. What do you want me to do about it? So the idea here is, can you take a problem, the problem that you solve, and make it bloody, make it more visceral, make it something. So as a result of students being confused, like, what is it? The problem is students who are confused what? Like what is actually, like, when a student is confused, you're going to say, yeah, that's big time. What does that mean?
They don't succeed.
Okay, so now we can play. Students who are confused, historically or based on research or mathematically, will fail, or they will not be successful. Okay, so if we said the problem is that confused students leads to drop in graduation rates, or it leads to students feeling like they don't belong. There's a number of different problems that you can relate with that, right? So the idea is when you formulate the problem sentence, describe it in the way that's like a paper cut. And here's why. Because now you can get people interested in what you do without telling them. So if I were to adopt this problem and say, the problem is that confused students don't find the success that students who understand what's going on is. Do you agree if that's a problem? Yes, raise your hand if you agree that that's a problem. No, we're not voting, just is it a problem? Yes. Okay, that's the first yes. Now, do we have any students in here? Okay. If you are a student and there is an element of confusion that you have in your university experience, raise your hand. Okay, so now we've narrowed down. So now she has this problem. Now, is this something that you're actually interested in? You're honestly interested in solving that problem sooner than later, yes or no? Yes. That guy can help you out. Do you see what just happened? He didn't sit there and say what he did. He just was able to articulate that the problem is students are confused. Do we think it's a problem? Yeah, we can admit it's a problem. Do you have that problem? Yes. Are you looking to solve it sometime soon? Yes. Cool. I can help you out. I don't know what you do, but I know that you solve the problem of confused students. And this is what I call permission-based pitching. And if you have a chance to interact with a student at a booth, this is a great way to get them interested, as opposed to, here's what we do, and here's what we do, here's what we do, here's what we do, here's what we do, we're a resource. I missed them. Okay? So right now I want you to try to jot down the problem that you solve. Do not use the words, I help. Do not use the words, we do, because that's all triggering on your services. Okay? We're going to write that one down. This is a really powerful way to get people interested in what you do, based on just the problem that you solve. Now, your solution. So, sir, we're going to use you as an example. What is your solution, and can you say it in one sentence? What is the solution that your resource provides?
I don't want to say like what we do.
No, now you can. Now you can. We're at the spot where you can tell me what you do.
We are your link to the campus resources. That's what we are.
Okay.
Bridge into the campus resources.
A bridge into the campus resources. Okay? So typically when someone asks what you do, you will go on and you will explain a number of different things that you do. I commend you for your shortness in trying to put it out there. It comes down to these two questions. What is the difference between what and how? Come on, we're smart here. What is what and what is how? Yes? What is what? What is how? The thing versus the process. Which one has a longer answer? Okay? When somebody asks you what you do, just tell them what you do. And then if they're interested, what are they going to ask you next? Well, how does that work? I'm so glad that you asked, but before I tell you how it works, I first want to know what you know about it. So if I were talking with this young lady here, I'd say, okay, well, what is it that you do on campus to try to lower your confusion now? And then she will say, I do this, and I know about this resource, and I know this, and I know this, and I know this. And you're like, That's great. You're doing a lot of the right stuff. But here's where we can actually help you. This is what we do. This is our magic sauce. And then that gives you a chance to let them communicate what they already know. So you're not telling them what they already know, which is a form of disrespect because you're not listening. And then you're able to highlight the one thing, what it is that you can do. So what is your solution? But don't include how it works. Because as soon as you tell them what it is, if they're interested and it has a problem that they solve, they're going to ask you, how does it work? And what you're doing is you're bringing them into the conversation. Next is the market. Who can tell me what the difference is between the target market and the market potential here on campus? Does this help? The target market is the actual students that you want to walk through your door. Sir, do you want every single student to walk through your door? No. He says no. When you are describing your market, your ideal student, don't use the word everyone. Don't use the word anyone. Because if I'm a student and I hear that you're for every student, you're not for me. If I know that you service everybody, not that interested. I'm not looking for a generalist. I'm looking for a specific solution to a problem that I have. So when you're describing your target market, it's important to communicate that in real time. Not for all students that are confused. No. What do you focus on specifically within the confused student base?
The academic.
Okay. A certain. Do you tend to deal with a certain year over others?
No, all of them.
Okay, but do you see what I'm saying? Like, all of them, you want to service all. But if you say, no, not all of them. Those that are maybe on academic probation, those are our real targets. But we also, that kind of stuff. So the idea is the more narrow you can communicate it, the more you can identify whether or not you can help this person. And if you go down Ring Road or Anteater Involvement Fair, most people are going, we're for everybody, and people just walk right by. So the concept is, can you narrow and target your market to just very specific? They're freshmen. Are they freshmen who are first gen? Are they freshmen first gen who are from out of state? Like, how specific can you get? Then you can start to know how to go after them. Go after them not in a negative way, but like actually help them learn that you solve the problem that they have. So now you have your department in 3 sentences. The problem that you solve, your solution, and your market. This is the conversation that you can have with somebody when you're explaining what it is, as opposed to spitting out what the actual values are. It's like, hey, what do you do? Enduring impact and assuring success. No. In fact, I challenge you, when somebody asks you as a professional colleague, the next time somebody asks you, what is it that you do? I challenge you to say, you know what, this may sound funny, but it's not what I do that's important. It's the problem that we solve. And then you stop talking. And you know what they're going to do? They're going to ask you, what's the problem that you solve? And then you tell them the problem, but you don't tell them what you do. And they're going to go, that's interesting. Tell me more about this. And they're just playing right into your hand. Okay? For those of you paying attention, how many ways can you combine A, B, and C uniquely? Altogether?
6.
Now, what if we used a mathematical property of substitution and we submitted P, S, and M for A, B, and C? How many different ways can we do that?
6.
You guys are smart. Now, we have those 3 sentences, right? How do you move that to 1 sentence? You basically use mathematics. And it means I solve this problem for these people, here's how I do it. For these people who have this problem, here's how I do it. You can combine those 3 elements 6 different ways into 1 sentence. So if we're going to say the problem solution market, then we could say the problem is that there are too many confused students on campus, of which we serve by acting as a bridge for whatever specific service, and we focus on those who are potentially in academic danger, specifically freshmen. Right? That's your 1 sentence. And you can rearrange that 6 different ways. So it's not like you're memorizing something. You're giving yourself and those who you lead on your team the ability to come up with something that makes sense, as long as you're all on the same page about the problem that you solve, the solution, and your market. Now, how do you fit all this into 3 words? Well, what if it wasn't 3 words, and what if it was 2 words that were connected by a relative term? You see, we all think in terms of other things. We learn language based on relational terms. This is a table, Ryan, because it's not a chair. Got it. So by tapping into what people already know, you can help create interest and intrigue in what you do by still encapsulating the essence of what you do. Who wants to play a little game? Would you like to? I know you're putting your glasses on. Who wants to play a game? Sure. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. Hi, maybe you can write these down or we can remember them. What famous person would your unit be? Oh, don't tell us what your unit is. What famous person would your department be like?
Oh, I have to answer these.
Yeah.
What famous person?
All right, pass. Next one. What is a cartoon character? If you had to put your entire department into a cartoon character, what cartoon character would they be?
Peter the Anteater.
Okay. Now, what about if you were a car? What type of car would you guys be?
An SUV.
Okay. Now, what about a hotel? What kind of hotel would you be?
Boutique.
Okay. And then if you were a fictional movie character, what would you be?
Superhero.
Okay. Anyone particular?
Elasti-Woman.
Okay. All right. Now let's flip modes. If you could describe your department in one word, what would it be?
Alumni.
Alumni, okay? Now, let's say one thing that you guys do the best.
Engage.
Okay? And what is the resource that you guys provide?
Engagement.
Okay? I've got enough. So let me know if this resonates with you. Do we have them? Do you feel that you are the SUV of engagement? Does that resonate? Out of a 3 out of 5. Because the idea here is we want to get just enough information to kind of get it, but not really, but be curious to learn more. So the answer is, do we hit like a 3 out of a 5?
Yeah.
Okay, we like that. Now, are you like a boutique hotel for alumni?
Sure.
Okay. Name a brand of hotel that's kind of boutique-y.
Soho.
Okay, so we're like the Soho for alumni. Right? What about the Elastic Woman? We're like the Elastic Woman of engagement. Right? Somebody's going, maybe I get it. It's kind of a stretch, right? So the idea here is to tap into what people and their creativity, what's going on in their brain. So if you were to meet somebody and they're like, hey, what does alumni really do? And you could think of us as, we're kind of like an SUV of engagement. In their brain, they're trying to connect the dots. And now everything that you say after that, they'll get it. Oh, it's big, it's rugged, it can kind of go off-road. Oh, but it's an SUV, but you've got to travel overseas, so it's an SUV with wings. And you have this idea of playing creatively through metaphor and analogy. So the power of utilizing this is that you can formulate, think of us as something of something. Think of us as something meets something, right? Think of us as the something of something. So what's fun is to come up with this and play with what these would look like. I may be a craftsman of communication, or maybe think of me as a black belt of branding. And what you can do is in a very few amount of words, 3 in the most purest form, because it's 2 things connected, then you can start to tap into what people are thinking. Okay? It can be 4, it can be 5. It's about 2 things in relationship to each other. Does anybody have any ideas of how they describe themselves before we move on? Okay?
We're the one-stop shop of wellness.
Okay, so when you say one-stop shop, think of something that is what is a one-stop shop? Target?
Yeah, we're the target of wellness.
We're the target of wellness. What does that say to you? You're leveraging a billion-dollar brand because they've convinced you that they have everything there. And that's a way to brand Halo. Now, maybe you might levitate more. We're more like a Walgreens of that, right? Or we're more like a Costco of that. And do you see how that sparks all these different emotions walking through aisles sort of scene, right? If you deliver bulk of products, that's one thing, right? If you're like a mini mart, that's also kind of cool because it's localized and you can hand pick everything, right? We're like a food hub for this. Oh, it's free and it's philanthropic. So you see how you can brand Halo off of this stuff. Now, this is the 313 as a deliverable is not your mission statement, your vision statement, your goals, your tactics. But what it does is it gets you to think like a business so we can tease all the other stuff out. Because your vision, mission, goals should all focus and communicate the problem that you solve for real people, what your solution is, and who specifically you target. Those are the guidelines for it. Okay? So this is exciting. I try to make that short, but I get so enthralled with it because it really is a way to whittle down the amount of time it takes to explain what you do. And we're going to use this as a foundation for this process. Okay? I'm going to finish this high and then I'm going to give it back to you because I need a breath. So, can you take your problem, solution, and market and reverse engineer your goals? Yes, you can. If the problem that you solve is around students being confused, what are your goals to accomplish that? If you know that your solution is providing boutique services, how do you articulate that? There's a spot up here if you want. How do you articulate that so that it translates into a goal? You see, I've been on different committees trying to come up with goals and come up with tactics, and if you're just like, out of the blue, let's come up with a bunch of goals. You're like, I'm not sure. Instead, you can say the problem that we're solving is this. The solution in the market. What are some goals to help us communicate what we're trying to achieve? So using the problem, solution, market as a guideline, you can then break down goals. So what would one goal for you be, sir, to help lessen confusion in a college environment?
Provide accurate information.
Okay, we might need to be a little bit more detailed about that. So providing accurate, real-time information on what makes students the most confused, based on data, something like that, right? Do you see how you don't just pull that out of thin air, but you're saying, how can we create goals to communicate the problem that we're solving? Does that make sense? It's a good logical way to start. Then, so some sample goals from the OVPTL. I'm just going to read one. Provide opportunities for undergraduates to take risks strategically to achieve their potential members as members of their community. So the problem that the OVPTL solves, you can probably take a guess based on that goal. Right? The problem is if students aren't prepared, they can't act as well as they could into their communities. So it's reverse engineering your goals based on the problems that you solve. And you can break this out in a spreadsheet format. This is one example, however you want to do it. Right? The goals is the starting point. So the 313 is back over here. Starting with the goals, you're going to be moving forward. All right. Now that you have the goals, Hai's going to talk with you about how we go from goals to the actual objectives.
Thank you very much, Ryan. How's everyone feeling so far? All right, we're 2/3 of the way through before we have our delicious lunch. So now we're going to go to objectives. So imagine a goal as the thing that you really want to accomplish. It doesn't have to be relegated to a single year, but if you and everyone in your unit, your department, your division, no matter what level you are within that pecking order, if you had to whittle it down to a short and sweet, bite-sized kind of pearl of who you want to serve and how you want to do it and what you want that outcome to be. So going back to solving for the student confusion thing, what do you think would be a realistic goal for your team to achieve?
I would say provide timely feedback when we get email.
So timely feedback. Students are busy, they have a lot that they have to balance at the same time, so it's really important that they have a trusted resource that they can rely upon to get that information. So how we would translate that into an objective is to think about how you would want to reach them. And how, if you don't know exactly how they want to be reached, you can actually put that as one of your objectives. So for example, in order for us to provide that timely information, we will strive to poll students, put together focus groups, find novel ways to gather that feedback so that you have that buy-in, that validation, and that confirmation that the information that you're providing is relevant, that it's practical, and that it's accessible. Does that make sense? Does anyone else have a goal that they can think of? Maybe we can tease out as a group. That's okay, you're still marinating on it. So I want you to take maybe a minute or two and just jot down very quickly what you think some goals are, and then we'll go into this a little bit deeper. So once again, the goal is kind of that high level thing that you want to achieve. So whoever your constituent is, whether that's a student, whether that's an alum, whether that's faculty, whether that's community members, whomever that is, what do you want them to accomplish? So if we go back to that OVPTL goal, for example, we want students to be trailblazers. So an objective that they have in one of those things to accomplish that goal is for them to have resilience, for them to be inquisitive, for them to be resourceful. And if you combine all of these objectives together, you would then achieve that goal, right? Because then they can be able to take a calculated risk, and then they can actually go back into the community and actually support other people by walking them through that same process with those same resources, with that same information that they have. Make sense? Okay.
Yeah, I can't tell with the computers if they're hiding, they're on Facebook, or they're really into it, but we'll see.
Okay, so going back to the objectives. So as we can see here, the goals, visionary leadership, self-awareness, and resilience. So if we were to define a trailblazer as someone that's a leader on campus, someone that's giving back, someone that's very helpful, leading by example, then yes, they should be a visionary. They should have these big ideas, but they should be able to back it up and understand what their limitations are and where they need to grow. So that's where the self-awareness comes in. And if they undergo adversity, which almost certainly they're going to go through, as we all do, they should have some resilience. Okay? And now how do you achieve those objectives is how we're going to go into the next part about tactics, right?
The values are what are that guiding light. The tactics are how you do it. So once you have these objectives, right, it might be integrity and it might be trust, these different values that you are having to showcase those objectives, and then it turns into tactics. So here's an example of values. Anybody have values that they want to share that you know off the top of your head?
I can chime in a little bit. So if you're having a tough time thinking about what values could describe, everybody here works in some kind of physical space, right? And do you bring in students or the constituents that meet with you into that space? What do you want them to feel? What is the experience you want to give them? That's the value, right? How do you execute your job? How do you
Question back
that?
here or suggestion?
Suggestion.
Yes.
We value community.
Okay.
I work at the Center for Black Culture Resource and Research. So community is a huge part of our values.
Excellent. So what you can do is you can take the values of community, and that should tie in with the objectives that you're doing, which should then tie in with the overarching goals, which should ultimately be helping to solve the problem that you're solving. Okay? So again, going back through this, we have our values that you've set, and if you don't know what they are, just cheat and go find what everybody else is and say, I like that, I agree with that, right? And then it goes to tactics. And I'll just skip through this because I had said it before, but now that you have the values, what specific tactics do you use to implement that? So back in the back with community, what is a tactic that you guys use to ensure that there's community that's happening? I think we lost her. So that's fine. So if somebody was going to walk in, you want them, the objective is displayed through the values of community. What's one tactic that you guys do to implement that on a daily basis?
Well, in the center, we do have just the, how to explain this? Well, we have a flat screen TV where they can like watch movies, or we'll play music all the time in the center. I feel like that really helps set the tone.
Okay, so it could be a visual identity that is your tactic to bring in. So you make sure that you have, a tactic is making sure that you have visual stuff that hits them right as they come in the door so they feel that sense of community. Because there's a disconnect between, the values and the goals and the objectives, and how does that actually play out in the office? And that's what your actual tactics are. Okay, so here's an example of a tactic. Maybe tie in American Talent Initiative stories to show trailblazers, to search through Tumblr and UCI stories to get the good ones and highlight them, right? Connect with the TEDx on campus and showcase the students that they're doing. This is all to help reinforce the goals and the objectives to showcase students being trailblazers, right? So these are boiled down to the tactics. And then tactics also come with metrics. So how do you actually measure that tactic, right? Could be from a survey, it could be from an actual imprint, could be from people walking in the door. We're a research university. We can figure out how to track these different tactics. Okay? So now it's going to lead to the mission. Hi, how does this bring it back to the mission?
So through that very in-depth process that you went through with Ryan, with your problem, solution, and your market, and then talking about what goals you want to achieve, how you want to achieve them, and then on the back end, how you're going to go out and actually execute and present that to your audience, that boils down to your mission statement. And as I mentioned at the very top, that's that very short and sweet, not that 2 or 4 word summary, but maybe a few sentences at the very most that really boil down the essence of what you do, why you do it, and the problem that you solve. So, thinking about some of the different ways that you are going to reach out to people, think about how that would translate. So for example, if we're going to serve timely, crucial, valuable information to students through engaging them through the platforms that they're on, how would that map to your mission? Well, you could say, we are here to serve those students that need help navigating their academic path, and we ensure in the spirit of keeping up to date with the ways that they need to find and engage with their information through these various channels. So, and then you would actually name off whatever social media platforms that you might be most active on. Could be one potential example. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's a great example because you're basically, go back one slide. Yep. Again, your mission is what you're doing tactically to reinforce the values that you hold for your unit that tie in with the actual objectives, which are the result of these higher level goals, which all should solve and communicate the problem that you solve to the students or the faculty, the staff that you serve. And I really just want to drill this in because if you're just pulling an actual mission statement out of the air, like it's very difficult and it's hard to patch them together. And you might find yourself copying and pasting a whole bunch and just looking and saying, what looks good? I don't know. But working through this actual process, you can see how they all tie in with each other, and that's the real key. Do you have to go about it this way? No. But we just want you to understand that there is a connection between them. And it's not just about coming up with a vision statement or just the vision statement. It is how that progresses that you really can tease out what you want to communicate.
Part of the questions that we asked in the beginning before doing this workshop today is getting buy-in from your leadership or getting everybody on the same page. I'm not sure how many meetings or advisory groups or committees you've been a part of and how many times you've had to go through revisions. I've certainly had that very painful experience of trying to get everybody on the same page, and by the time it makes all the way to the top, it ends up right back on the bottom, and then takes something that could have taken you maybe a month or 3, takes you maybe 1 or 2 years. And that's not something that anybody wants to go through. So this is just one potential way of keeping everybody on the same track. So whether you're talking to your leadership, your team, students that you're onboarding that are supporting you as interns or peer mentors or whatever it is, you can kind of walk them through all of this so everybody's on the same page. So if you're having any difficulty in getting everybody to agree on something, you can always refer back to this because you have that common blueprint. So here's an example of a mission statement. So
and look at the sizes between the two, right? This is an instance where you could have a very high level or a more in depth. It's not about the length. It's about how it encapsulates all those other things.
So this one is to cover yourself, right? Just to make sure everyone's included. But at the end of the day, if someone's meeting you at a booth, at a conference, in a leadership meeting, is anyone going to actually stand up and say this whole thing? Hopefully not. I hope not. If you do, live your truth. We're not here to judge. But I think you'll have a much better time condensing it down to something like the above. Fair? So we're not saying that it's going to happen overnight, but following that roadmap of everything that we've been working on so far, you'll get a lot closer to hitting that mission statement. Questions? Good? Okay. And then finally, the vision. So think of the vision as just a very bite-sized little piece, kind of a teaser that really helps kind of tie it all together. And it will be derived from your mission statement, so you're not having to start from scratch. And that is the whole enchilada.
Yeah, the vision is the whole enchilada. And if you look at this as a target, right, of these Tupperware stacking, you have your vision in the middle and everything falls beyond that. Now your goal is that when you're talking to somebody, they hit the target. That means they don't have to land on the vision, they don't have to land on the mission, they don't have to land on the goals or the objectives. They land somewhere there. So if you can create the unity, you can leverage your department above you and your office of blank above you. It's really just about being secure that whatever happens, it's hitting a target that you're comfortable with. Because if you can communicate the goals, great. If you can communicate the vision, great, because they are all tied in with each other. So think about the vision as the whole enchilada. Here's some examples. They don't have to be full sentences. Less than 5 words, I think, is preferred. But empowering education, enduring impact. That's the OVPTL. And here's some other examples. Right? Creating places to thrive and connect. That's UCI housing. Now, as an exercise, you can say, from that enchilada, how can we reverse engineer through the process, and it can help you tease out what would make sense for you. Okay, talking about leadership. I love statistics because is this not a bell curve or what? Okay, they talk about it in school. This is in real life. So this question was, how hard is it to get your leadership along the way? Everybody's right in the middle and you have those 2 beautiful looking tails, okay? So this is a reality for everybody and not everybody has full opt-in. And as Hai was saying, it's not about starting a committee to start a committee to figure it out. This is something that your team can develop and flesh out this whole thing and then bring it to your leadership and say, what do you think? And then everybody's involved in that process, okay? But it is a challenge to get stakeholders involved. So how do you communicate to them? You get them involved in the process maybe after you've done a little bit of work, right? This is great committee stuff to go through, but if you have finite goals that you're trying to attack and you're moving them through the process. Okay, so creating buy-in. This is in a general sense something to think about. This is not specific for creating goals, but this is for strategic plans. Ask yourself, do you have a champion? Somebody in your office who's like, I want to stand up and I want to be the champion of this. That's important. Do you have a sponsor? Somebody who runs interference for that champion? Do you have a faculty steering committee or somebody that you can put together to oversee and sort of help to create and guide, but the responsibility isn't all with them? And then is there a faculty senate? Is there a way to leverage? They're very difficult to deal with. This is more for strategic planning. They're amazing. We love you. But again, we're looking to create something that you can actually utilize and that you can create quickly. And then a planning team, right? Who would actually be doing the heavy lifting? So figuring out those steps beforehand is going to be key in working through this process. Should you include students in this process? Yes or no? Yes. I hope so. Oftentimes, if we create these ideas in a bubble and then we go out, it doesn't resonate with the students. And so keeping them in mind in this process. Ask them, is this the problem that we solve? Would you say this is our solution? Okay, and let's look at everybody who we serve. How can we put them into some sort of a box to say these are the people that we best serve? Now, when we have this information, how do we get it out there? This is the graph, and as you see, it's all over the place. I was interested in this, and maybe the question was not as straightforward, but we have people who are using newsletters, email, social media platforms, in leadership meetings. Some people don't even really distribute. But the idea here is that the more ways you can create volume with this message, the better. And one thing that we've done at the OVPTL is that we packaged everything into one good-looking sheet. We designed it. We spent a lot of time with design. We've got Peter there. We feel that visually it kind of says what we're after. Then we went to print. Every single unit in the DOE has a laminated copy of this for every single manager's desk. Every main office has a 3 by 4 foot, really nicely printed on like the plasticky stuff, which looks professional, up in the back of the office. Michael Denon has even done a Zot moments where you're highlighting people and what they're doing in relation to these goals, visions, values, and whatnot. So keeping it top of mind and physically printing it and putting it into people in front of them is a key way of doing that. Okay, so again, once you get this down, distribute it. Yes, online, but also offline, so people can see it and then find ways to maybe incorporate it. Okay. I want to touch real quick in the last minute here about some of the things that people are doing. This breaks it out a little bit more. Social media is great, but making it multifaceted is important. That's a good one. You have access to this. You can study and check it out later. Now, for the fun part, we do have lunch, which is going to be great. But we also are going to play a networking game. And we talked today about how you can communicate by saying less. We talked about how you can have goals and visions and mission. And right now, it should all just be super mushy in your brain. Now, everyone look very closely, not at me, but look very closely up at the screen. Open your eyes. See, they were already open. You didn't know. Hi, my name is Ryan. Nice to meet you. All of your memories have been completely erased, except for the basics of your name, your profession, where you work, and your own instincts as far as what you guys do. That means that you look to the left, look to the right. You have no idea who these people are. Who are you? You have a chance to meet people for the first time over lunch. And so what we are going to encourage you to do is to actually meet people for the first time. And you're going to want to get to know them. You're going to want to get to know what they do for a job, where they work. What is this UCI thing you talk of? Is it under construction indefinitely? Is that what it is? The fun here is that you'll have a chance to practice communicating as though someone knows nothing about it. And so your job is to play very dumb and be like, huh, what's that? Really? What? Oh, that's interesting. Never heard of that before. Again, if we don't practice these messaging muscles, nothing will ever happen. So you guys, whether you know it or not, you're participating because all of your memory has been erased. Now, before we go, I would like to take a group photo, but you guys don't have to move. This is a selfie maneuver. Now, a selfie is something that you take a picture of yourself, okay? This is a cell phone. And all you have to, the trick is if you go to the furthest corner that creates a direct line, and then we should be able to get most people in here. Okay, look at that. Sort of, kind of, right? Maybe, sort of, a little bit.
I'll just hide.
All right, you hide in the corner down there. Okay, let's get your zots up, but don't say anything because we'll make you say it on camera. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to do a quick little video which says, you know, in Michael Dennon's spirit, we're going to make you do the zot, zot, zot. Now the zots, that's the war cry for the anteater, and it's the sound that an anteater makes when it attacks its prey. And normally we say zot, 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 but this time we're going to say it backwards. Zot, zot, zot. Okay? So here we are at UCI at the social media lunch where we talked about branding. And at the end of the day, the one core brand that unites us all is 1, 2, 3, zot, zot, zot.